Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Ramphisa. I am the chairperson for the Southern African region for the Global Mental Health Peer Network. I'm joined by our team from the Global Mental Health Peer Network, and I have our speakers, which I would like to introduce. The first speaker will be Elza Berk Anastasia Smith, and we have the other speaker, Keshni Mati. She is currently not available, but as soon as she joins in, then we will continue to ask her questions. So each and every speaker will have their own questions, which will be based on the webinar for today. So the topic for the webinar is on using Ubuntu to create the mentally healthy workplaces. So going to the first speaker, Elza Berk, can you please briefly introduce yourself before we get into the questions?
Hi, it says Elizabeth Berk, but everyone calls me Elza, and I'm part of the Global Mental Health Peer Network, and I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, and I have lived experience with substance use, childhood sexual trauma, and anxiety and depression, and recently was diagnosed with ADHD. So I have a nice cocktail of things that I embrace, but sometimes find quite challenging to live with. But I am very passionate about this topic because, yeah, it's really close to my heart. I am part of an organization that looks after individuals like myself that's struggling with mental health and substance use. And I really try and also have a work environment where people feel included, looked after, and where dignity and human rights come first. So it's challenging, but we try our best. So thanks, that's me.
Thank you, Elza. The second speaker is Anastasia Smith. Can you kindly introduce yourself, Anastasia?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Smith, although I really don't mind being called Anna. It's much more shorter that way. I have lived experience with ADHD, and what I'm suspecting too is autism. I am an ADHD coach and poet. The reason why I became part of this organization is especially after hearing about the experiences with people close to me, and when I didn't actually understand more about myself and ADHD, and then I took a coaching course, and I started realizing why I am the way I am, and I realized there's actually nothing wrong with me all along, but I was just different. I'm based in Johannesburg.
Thank you, Anastasia. I think I will shoot straight to the questions. Please be comfortable and enjoy the webinar. So the first question is directed to Elza. Can you tell us a little about your experience in dealing with mental health challenges at work and prioritizing dignity of human beings? How prioritizing dignity of human beings can help those who are having mental health challenges heal or cope in their professional lives?
So I really love that question because it is, like I say, really true to my heart in the sense that I am a business owner myself, and I, like I said, struggle with mental health, but I also encounter a lot of other businesses that want to incorporate mental health and well-being in their organizations. And I think one of the biggest struggles that I find is still the stigmatization when it comes to mental health. And for me in particular, it's around the fact that there has to be a separation around what happens at work and what happens at home. So employers and employees will often say it's not work related. So if it's mental health that you're struggling with, if it's not affecting, it shouldn't be affecting your work. It shouldn't be affecting, we've got to separate everything. And I feel like that actually makes it almost impossible. You cannot separate the two, because a huge part of the reason of the work I do, but also the person I am, I don't believe my mental health is all of me, but it does affect my being and how I interact with people. So I find myself in situations on a regular basis where it still is severely scrutinized and discriminated against. And I often use the example around the fact that if someone had a heart attack, they would be booked off work. If somebody was diagnosed with cancer, they would be booked off work. But when it comes to mental health, there's still this like thought process. Well, you just got anxiety, cope with it. Like just have some deep breaths, take a moment. And I just I feel like there's just a lack of empathy and compassion, which is part of the Ubuntu is having compassion for individuals that struggle with mental health. I think myself struggling with substance use. I worked at a company a couple of years ago and money went missing. And the first thing they did was come and ask me if I'd taken the money. So it's still that like people discriminate. So they are very encouraging about being open about your mental health, but you are, and then you kind of get, are you really sick? Are you really absent? Did you relapse? Like what's going on? So I do feel like there's this double-edged sword to it. So that's been my personal experience.
Thank you for that, Elza. The second question is, have you experienced Ubuntu in your work during the time you have mental health challenges, and how has that impacted your recovery?
So I definitely have. I had a huge wobble today, like massive. I get really overwhelmed at work and I get super stressed. And I actually reached out to Sandra. And I did. And I had a little moment and I had a little cry. And I'm saying little, but I do feel like it's important that I am able to release and have compassion for myself, in the sense that life does get overwhelming. And I almost feel with an expectation of struggling with mental health, I feel like I push harder than anybody else to try and do things. I'm like, I've got to do this. I've got to do it. I've got to push through, which is kind of how my mental health was dealt with growing up. Was like, you just got to move on. You've just got to push through, like everyone struggles. So it's really something I really struggle with, self-compassion. But I think when you lean on peers that really understand mental health, and therapy, I'm a massive believer in going to therapy. I go to therapy myself, but I also lean on individuals like Sandra and some of my other friends who really just hold space for me to have those moments of just feeling like I can fall apart, and there's a safety net in that. So yeah, I think peers are a massive support and create amazing amounts of compassion. And I also feel like the Ubuntu says, what does it say? I am, and that's why we are. So I do believe that.
Thank you so much, Elza, for sharing your experience and those comments you just said, and answering the questions we had for you. We'll jump on to the next speaker, Anastasia Smith. The first question to you, Anastasia, can you tell us a little about your lived experience and how have you been able to navigate your career, even with the condition that you are currently diagnosed with?
Absolutely. So initially, the reason why I actually wanted to start off my career as an ADHD coach and as a poet was because of my lived experience. Initially, the writing and the poetry was a way to digest and integrate these complex emotions I was dealing with at that time. And as I progressed with the writing, I actually realized I have a strength in that. So I started writing more and more, and before I knew it, I actually have a book published this year. And as for the coaching, I realized too that there's a lot more people, struggling, and they have similar, stories of their own that resonate with me. And I realized that, I want to be able to, using strength-based, which is actually the primary idea of being a coach. It's an accountability partnership where you help your clients meet their goals by using their strengths. And as we all know, with someone with ADHD, we thrive in situations where we use what we're good at and what we actually enjoy to tackle things where we believe that we may need improving or changing.
Thank you for that, Anastasia. The second question is directed to you as a poet. Have you used words to help you in dealing with your mental health or help others with your poetry to deal with mental health challenges? Which is something you have already answered, but can you please elaborate more on that?
Yes, of course. So basically, sometimes I honestly struggle with how I'm feeling and what emotions I truly feel. Sometimes it feels very abstract and I can't always determine how I feel. So when I find that I'm taking the time to actually write down words and articulate, and paint this picture with words, it makes me realize, actually, I'm starting to feel this way. I'm starting to dig deeper more into those emotions. And I remember very specifically the one time I wrote about having this nightmare, and I remember saying that it correlates, with the meaning of the fact that, how can I say it, that I'm overthinking about things and always assume that the worst is going to happen. And once I posted this poem on my socials, I remember someone connecting with me and saying they feel the same way. They always feel like there's an impending sense of doom. And I remember them telling me too that my words inspire them and that they actually resonate with me, which was really beautiful because I want to actually offer that sort of comfort with my words.
Thanks for that. And the last question to you, how can we foster the culture of Ubuntu or use it as a tool in advocacy?
Well, honestly, based on what I have an understanding of Ubuntu, which means I am, because we are, it gives me this idea that we are, because of everyone else around us, that tells me that we have to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And it's quite interesting because a wise person once told me, which is actually my mom as a counselor too, she would tell me, you can never fully understand someone. So when I think of it that way, I can only imagine that I'd only understand or be able to help or get to know that person struggling better if I let them lead me and how they would like to do things.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. I would like to thank our two speakers today for sharing all that they shared this evening. It was very fruitful. And currently, I would like to direct to give all the guests a platform to ask questions if they have. Is there anyone who has a question?
I do.
Okay. You can shoot, Sandra.
Yeah. So mental health in the workplace is such a battlefield. And especially if you live with a mental health condition, I know a lot of us, it's very difficult to disclose in work environments because there is the stigma and the discrimination, and you're going to be viewed in a certain way. And there's a bit of a feeling in terms of changing like corporate culture that it's not really possible on a level. It takes a lot of work, but how we can change mental health in the workplaces as individuals. So I have this kind of idea that, and it's not just an idea, it's something I actually did in my previous job, is that you have open conversations, and it doesn't necessarily need to be about your lived experience. It's just about mental health in general. And I think that is important. So it's so scary to come out and go, like for me to come out and go, I live with bipolar or whatever it is, but I can have a conversation and say, I know what it feels like to, be depressed or, those kinds of things. So relate on those levels. So I'm just wondering from all of you, including you, Bridget, like how do you approach like mental health in the workplace? And I also, obviously, you've got a counseling practice and stuff, so it's very in your face. But just in general, or just in your everyday life, and like when you meet new people, like, obviously you don't go, hi, I'm Sandra, I have bipolar or anything like that. But like, how do we get these conversations? Because that for me is where Ubuntu lies, is where we can connect with our experiences and our stories. So I hope that question makes sense. But yeah, if I could pose that, I'll start with you, Bridget, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. With me, I have a good relationship with our employee health and wellness coordinator at work. So most of the challenges I have, I would share with her. And I sort of have a network at work whereby if I feel that I'm not doing well, then I just get someone to just talk to them and yeah, just cough out. Because most of the times you are really unable to continue with your daily job without when you have something on your mind or when something is disturbing you. And having these employee health and wellness programs, they really do help because there's even now, since it's I mean, previously the last month was men's mental health awareness month, and then even in the following month there will be women's month. So the awareness programs that they have sort of helps us in being okay with everything that's happening at work. And most of the time I'm very open about my challenges, so that sometimes when you put in the leave, your boss should sort of understand, and when you are open about the challenges that you have, so it becomes easy for you to get that approval. So that's how I go about in dealing with the challenges, my mental health challenges. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. It's really great, obviously, to hear that you've got a employee well-being kind of initiative in where you work, which is great, and one that you feel comfortable using. I know a lot of people don't always feel comfortable using the ones that are in place. So yeah, but it was good. Anastasia, and then to also to answer similar question.
Would you like me to answer, or would else would like to go first? Okay,
No, sorry, Anastasia, yes, please.
So it's actually quite interesting because as I'm sharing from the perspective, as a young adult that's looking for, like a normal minimum wage job, and this is what brought me into, speaking on this, on this workshop today. I remember I was going for an interview, to work part of Reader's Warehouse, which is a bookstore. And the thing is, one thing about me is I absolutely love reading. I've quite a bit of knowledge on books, and the interview took place, and I mentioned on my CV that I'm an ADHD coach, and also about being part of advocacy too. And then the manager asked me suddenly, wait, have you got ADHD? But then she hesitated, and then she paused, which is not a bad thing. And then immediately I knew that there's already a problem with it. And I honestly didn't know how to react or, what to do in that situation. I don't know if anyone really can. I remember going home that day and telling my partner, oh, this is what happened. And he was saying to me too, maybe you should not mention it. But the thing is, I honestly didn't mention it. My manager asked me, and I realized the way to go is either go things, more on the business route, or continue to, job hunt and see where there's genuine people understanding of your condition.
Thanks, Anastasia. And there are people out there. I mean, I think for a lot of the time we think there aren't people that are understanding. But I'm going to reflect on my previous experience again. Obviously, within the GMHP, and it's very comfortable for me to be all parts of me. So I'm very blessed in that way. But my previous employments, I didn't disclose my condition until about a year into that, because I felt on a level like I had to prove myself. And then I came out, and my previous employer was like, why didn't you tell me at the beginning? I said it would have changed your perception, and I know that. So yeah, but at the same time, it's probably someone I could have told at the beginning. So there are people out there and stuff, but But yeah, thanks, Anastasia. Thanks for answering the question. And I'm just waffling. Elsa, you want to build on this?
So I think of it similar experiences where it's like people, but I think so I've had similar experiences where, like I said, there's people that really do stigmatize it, where you come out and you say something and they're like, and I've actually have gotten to a stage, and I have been advocating for substance use and harm reduction for a really long time, and particularly around trauma-informed care. And I have gotten to a point where if it makes you uncomfortable, then I'm not supposed to be in your space. So if my lived experience and a huge part of my life, and that has brought me to where I am today, is something that you don't feel comfortable with, then we're not supposed to be in the same room. So that's kind of, so I'm not giving you advice, Anastasia, but with my work situation, when we have companies that want to onboard us for employee wellness, and they have really weird criteria, which they're like, but we don't want to, like, we want to know who the people are that you're going to onboard. Do you know what I mean? That you have to be transparent. I'm like, that's breaking confidentiality. No, we don't do that. Do you know what I mean? So if they are then pushy about it, I'm like, we're not going to be able to work together, because it goes against who I am at my core. Like, I wouldn't want my personal information shared, and I don't believe in sharing other people's. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with mine, and maybe it will change. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'll feel like that forever, but I'm really feeling very passionate about it at the moment, and have been for a couple of years now. And then, having said that, I also do feel that the part of the Ubuntu for me is the fact that I have to be who I am, not who
Yes.
other people are wanting me to be, which for a really long time was someone that should be normal. Do you know what I mean? Fit in a box. Like, so I don't think that there can be a we are if I can't be who I am. So I kind of lean a lot into that, and it does get me into trouble. But I do also believe that, and once again, I think it's because of the work that I do, which is advocating and mental health and all of that stuff. But that I think that my journey, the only reason I went through it is to help other people. So I just don't see myself doing anything else. So if this is what it's supposed to do, then, so be it. But I've kind of, if other people are uncomfortable about who I am, then that's their stuff. They should go to therapy. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I would like to add something on what our speakers have shared. Being part of the Global Mental Health Peer Network has sort of helped me in being very confident in speaking up and expressing myself as I am. And even at work, I'm actually able to advocate for others, even if it's not in the Global Mental Health Peer Network. So I go with that skill I've learned in the network everywhere I go. And it sort of helps others to open up about their situations. And even me, when I go to the wellness coordinator, it helps. If I myself, a person who's in the space, go to a wellness coordinator and seek for help, then it becomes easier for everyone else to go and seek for help. And yeah, it's sort of helping. And the other thing I've used in my experience is consistently going for counseling. Whenever I have a challenge, I go for counseling, even if it's something very small. Maybe I'm worrying about maybe my family problems or finances. I do go for counseling because, sometimes when you go for counseling, they would refer you to support groups with people who are experiencing the same thing, or you would be able to attend classes whereby they are helping you to deal with that sort of challenge you are going through. For example, I once attended a class whereby they were talking about boundaries. You know, such classes, they also help in dealing with a lot of mental health challenges. So yeah, thank you. I don't know if there's other questions that or comments that anyone would like to add.
Hi everyone. I
Hi,
hope
Zay.
you're all doing well. Sorry, I'm actually currently eating, but there is a question in the comment box. But before that, I do want to actually ask you all, if you could design your dream mentally healthy workplace, what's one surprising or unusual feature it would have? Think of like if it's like nap pods or therapy animals, or for myself, like video game breaks during workplace. Is there anything of yourself that would surprise or like an unusual feature that you would actually go for?
With me, Zach, I would say it's something that I actually currently use. Whenever I feel overwhelmed, I have sort of colorful games on my phone. Then I just go to an auditorium or a place where there's less people there, and I just, or in my car, and sort of just play the game and unwind. So it's sort of my wusa moment, or something that I use to unwind or just forget about everything that's happening. So I move from the space that I'm currently in to another space. So it sort of helps. Is there anyone who would like to add? I think as Anastasia, is there something you would like to add?
Yes, so based on my own special interests and what actually really helps me regulate myself, I know this sounds rather outlandish, but I mean, we can use creativity here anyway. I would ask for a small section of a little forest or, a little greenhouse in the office place, because it really does make you feel grounded, and you can also have like a space in the greenhouse, or some sort of part of the nature based, resting, sort of space where you can also exercise or even dance. I find that dancing and moving my body actually really helps me regulate myself, and also being outside too is another thing.
Thank you, Anastasia.
I
Is
can
there
really,
anyone? Sorry, continue, Elsa.
sorry, Bridget. I just wanted to say I can relate to what both of you are saying, because I totally like go out in between meetings and stuff. I actually need to go outside for a bit, like stretch my legs, like just be outside and like self-regulate a bit, and then just take some time. Also, I have a dog, and I'm really lucky that I work from home, because my dog, even though she barks at times, does really give me that like time out to be like, okay, let's go outside, let's see what's going on, like have a little cuddle, do you know what I mean? Come back and sit down and try and refocus again. But I do think, yeah, I'm like trying to think, like I almost feel like Zach asked that, and I'm like, I have the perfect work environment. Like I have a heater, I have a drawer of biscuits. I'm like, okay, I have coffee, like I have a dog, I have an outside, like so I think yeah, I think that I can't really think for I would be interested to know what other people also think, but I think that we're all on the same page where mental health breaks is what is keeping us all kind of sane.
Thank you, Elsa. Zach, I hope we have answered your question.
Yes, yes, you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anything that anyone would like to add or ask? Yes, you can go on, Sandra.
Sorry, I thought I'd raise my hand this time. No more questions, but just comments. Just to say thank you to the three of you for making the time today. I know sometimes, people on the call might not be a large audience, but we never know where this goes and how far it reaches. So really appreciate it. I love to hear the people's experiences. It is so important, and it does inspire hope and wellness. And everybody's wellness looks different in certain instances and stuff. But yeah, just from the global office, Bridget as the moderator, thank you for the work putting this together, and Anastasia and also for presenting and taking the time. So thank you from us.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Do you want to say something, Anastasia?
I was just saying thank you for having us.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone who attended the webinar and the presenters. It was a very fruitful webinar, and I would like to see all of you in the next webinar if we are going to have next time. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.